Hello, and welcome to Navigating Study Boundaries with the Center for Academic Performance on behalf of Be Well Week. Today, we're going to discuss how to understand boundaries, setting boundaries around studying, addressing challenges, and then we'll go over some brief tips and tricks. So, what even is a boundary? It's a set of limitations and rules intentionally created within a relationship to dictate how you expect to be treated. While many people think of boundaries as existing between two or more people, it is also important to consider the boundaries we set with ourselves. This is important because how we treat ourselves can play a role in how we allow others to treat us. So, why would we need to set boundaries around studying? Creating clear expectations for yourself regarding how much time you're going to spend, what activities you're going to protect time for, and even what studying with classmates might look like increases the capacity you have for things outside of school. It can help you stop from overcommitting or setting unrealistic goals for yourself. And it ensures that you maintain space for the people and activities that bring you joy. To summarize, setting boundaries with yourself around studying will help you protect your own well-being, enabling you to be a happier and more effective student. Let's go over 5 steps to help you set some of these boundaries. First, it's important to figure out what boundaries need to be put in place and how to recognize when you've crossed them. Start with a focus on taking care of yourself and creating a sense of balance, rather than focusing on forcing yourself into a place where you can't take breaks without feeling guilty. Tune into feelings that pop up. Do you tend to grow more and more frustrated and distractible later at night? Rather than trying to force yourself to continue working, listen to those signals and create a set stop time for your studying. You may find this also helps you get more done during your study blocks because you'll want to be done by that stop time. Other questions you should ask yourself are things like, does this make me feel uncomfortable or drained? Do I actually have the time and energy to do this and take care of myself? Am I doing this because I want to, or I think I would disappoint someone if I didn't? Is this how I would want to see somebody else being treated? Always look at ways to work with yourself, not against yourself. A boundary should be freeing, not punishing. For example, having your phone in another room while you're studying with an alarm set on it means that while you're studying, you won't be as easily distracted by it. But it also means that you've built in a way to make yourself physically walk away and take a break from studying when the alarm goes off. If you're feeling overwhelmed at the idea of implementing larger boundaries, it's okay to start small. Some other examples of study boundaries could be things like having a set stop time each day, protecting time each week for non-school related activities, like going to the gym or having coffee with a friend, or having a designated study space. Next, it helps to have support when setting boundaries with yourself. Discussing concerns with a loved one or asking a friend to help you brainstorm healthy study boundaries can help you approach things from a place of support rather than guilt. You can also seek accountability with maintaining your boundaries by setting up regular check-ins. It's also helpful to be able to reach out for support if you find that you consistently violate your own boundaries. Next, we need to create clear lines with ourselves. Be as specific as possible, and then do what you can to set yourself up for success. For example, maybe you want to stop studying on the couch because it's too easy to turn on the TV or take a nap. Instead of just saying, no more studying on the couch, focus on where you can study effectively and try to make it a place that you're actually happy to spend time in. Maybe that means putting a cute placemat down on the corner of the dining table you usually work at, or adding twinkly lights above your desk. Regardless, having that designated space set up in a welcoming way will make it a lot easier to stick to your new boundary. It's also a good idea to plan to be flexible. This does not mean ignoring your boundaries whenever they feel a little inconvenient. It does mean that if you know something is coming up that might impact your studying, figuring out a healthy way to work around it. For example, if you have a friend coming to visit and you know you won't be able to spend as much studying while they're over, look at your schedule in the days leading up to the visit to figure out what kind of space you can make to accommodate it. Maybe you typically try not to study on Friday evenings, which is a pretty healthy boundary. But for that week, you're going to move your normal Saturday study block to Friday evening to make time to spend with your friend. Step 4 is to enforce the boundaries you've set. Part of that is learning how to say no to yourself. Maybe you're feeling a little sleepy or unmotivated one day. Rather than giving up on studying altogether, continue to follow the plan you've created. Your studying may not be as productive that day, but following through with your schedule will help you maintain the study habits you're trying to stick to. Consistency is the key to maintaining successful boundaries, not perfection. Last but not least, we need to evaluate the boundaries we've set. If you're consistently violating your own boundaries, start by asking yourself if you're being too lenient or too strict with yourself. Again, boundaries should be freeing and not punishing. They are there to help you succeed. If you're sacrificing your own well-being in pursuit of looking to someone on the outside like a perfect student, your boundaries are not serving you well. Next, we're going to address some challenges. Procrastination is something that a majority of people will experience at some point in their lives. However, some are more prone to it than others. Procrastination is the act of knowingly delaying or putting off tasks until the last minute or past their deadline. Keep in mind, procrastination and laziness are not the same thing. Procrastination is frequently tied to a mental block of some kind. Fear of not doing a good enough job, too many options for how to get it done, leading to decision fatigue, or worrying about how difficult the task will be. Laziness is usually tied to a task we could easily accomplish and don't really have any strong feelings about. We're just choosing not to do it right then. What are some common reasons people procrastinate? Uncertainty, disinterest, bad habits, a lack of motivation, poor prioritization. Honestly, could just be that you don't really know how to do it. To simplify, think about how we tend to distract ourselves from pain. If we burn our hand, our first instinct is to shake it or grab it, creating a different sensation to take our minds away from the burn. This is essentially what we do when we procrastinate. Thinking about the task is creating a negative emotion, so we instinctively seek a distraction to take our minds off of it. To help us combat procrastination, focus on getting started rather than on the end product. Sometimes something as simple as opening your laptop or creating a title page for your research paper can help you get going. It can also help to break things into smaller pieces. Instead of thinking about how you have to go through an entire PowerPoint, try focusing on the first 10 slides. You may find it's then a lot easier to move on to the next 10. A common misconception, and a large reason many people often feel a lot of guilt around procrastination, is the idea that you can just overcome it with enough willpower. Contrary to popular belief, willpower is in limited supply and it can't be forced. What does help is knowing yourself. If you have healthy boundaries in place that are created with your best interests in mind, they will actually help you beat procrastination. Priorities can also help us. They're critical to consider when you're setting any kind of a boundary for yourself. We're going to take a brief look at 2 ways to think about prioritization. First is the urgent versus important matrix, also known as the Eisenhower matrix. If something is both urgent and important, like an exam that's in 2 days, it's obviously a high priority to prepare for. An often overlooked task that can also be considered both urgent and important is sleep. It impacts every other hour of your life, including studying. Things that are important but not urgent should still have space on your list, but they can probably be done a little later. If something is urgent but not important, you may be able to delegate it or remove it from your list altogether. These are often things that other people see as important, but don't actually have that much impact on you. Healthy boundary setting means being able to recognize if somebody else's emergency really falls on you to resolve. If something is neither urgent nor important, like keeping up with your favorite show or scrolling on social media, you don't have to completely remove it from your life. It just might mean that you have to be more flexible, and sometimes you may have to remove it from your list from time to time. Another way to look at priorities is through juggling. We've all heard the phrase, they've got a lot of balls in the air. Well, what those balls are made of informs how important it is to keep them in the air. A glass ball will shatter and be irreparable if you drop it. These are your highest priorities, like eating, sleeping, and staying on top of schoolwork. Plastic balls can be dropped on occasion, but over time, they will get damaged and they might break. These are your mid priorities, like keeping up with loved ones, cleaning your home, and participating in that student org you signed up for. Last are the rubber balls. No matter what, if you drop them, they will bounce back. This would be something like keeping up with that new Netflix show. We never like to drop a ball, but when we do, it matters what it's made of. So, how can we set ourselves up for success when creating study boundaries? Often this will involve a schedule of some kind. Whether you choose to use a weekly or monthly calendar, whether it's physical or virtual, or even if you focus on to-do lists, getting organized is going to help. Focus on finding a tool you'll use consistently and that you'll actually look back at. Try to make a plan at the beginning of each week. After all, no 2 weeks are going to be identical. Be consistent with the schedule you've created and the boundaries you've built in, but also make room for flexibility when the unexpected inevitably happens. Some final tips before I let you go. When you're setting up boundaries, start with your priorities. Make time for the most important items at the beginning of the week or day. Give yourself permission to say no to yourself and to others, within reason. And make sure that your boundaries include break times. Breaks are critical for effective studying and learning. They don't need to be earned. If you need help and support along the way, remember that CAP is here to help. We can work with you to develop appropriate boundaries, provide accountability, and suggest different ways to track your time so that you're able to get the most out of your study time.